Mary is going to speak about how she was able to reduce her carbon footprint by 38% at her home. So Mary, I'll turn it over to you.
So this is a picture of my house. Susan asked me to do this presentation. It is evolution of a talk I gave on an initiative we have in our neighborhood to bring down our natural gas use by 25% by 2025. So since that is technically my initiative, I've been tracking how well I've been doing and tracking what I've been doing. And so this is a very short talk about things I've done to bring down my natural gas use. I wanted to call this out. It sort of played into something I did at work today on the green team. People focus on big ticket items like solar paneling or heat pump or geothermal, and there's a lot to do before you even get to something at that level. My house was built in 1907. Houses built before 1980 don't really usually have good insulation. So if you have an older home, this is an area where you could do a lot to bring down your greenhouse gas impact. Steps I took before 2019, and I'm calling out 2019 because that's my baseline reading. That's when I started counting down the impact of my actions. So steps I took before that, a long time ago, I signed up for renewable energy for electricity. This is key because as I move forward, I am going to be switching my water heater over to an electric water heater. My stoves, which are gas stoves, will eventually become electric stoves. And as much as I can switch over to electricity, that part is taken care of because I'm already signed up for renewable energy. If I'm assuming a lot of people on this call are already at maybe 100%, but if it's not, you haven't had a chance to do it yet or look into it, I just found out about a new initiative called Green Neighbor Challenge. I have the web page right there. And they are currently developing their site. They're in beta testing, but they may be able to point you in the direction of where to sign up for either wind power or community solar. The other thing I did in 2018 was I had a home energy audit from Center for Energy and the Environment. And they gave me a detailed report calling out exactly which windows and doors were problematic, as well as calling out other things I needed to do. I also did some other insulation projects. So earlier, and I'm calling out this one in particular, the insulation between basement joists, because that in older homes is a very easy upgrade to make that costs like less than $100 in materials. So let's look at how well I've done since I did the baseline in 2019. Starting in September, you can see this, the orange line is the therms I used in natural gas, and it's a rolling number. It's a rolling total of the previous 12 months. And you can see it's constantly going down. So the goal is to get it to zero. With technology today, I'm not sure I could ever really get it quite to zero, but anything is better than nothing, you know? So how did I do this? Well, to start with, this is one of those pictures they take showing you heat loss. This was in the report from Center for Energy and the Environment. And this is my back door, and I'm just using it as an example. I haven't replaced the back door, but I have done weather stripping. I've done plastic wrap. I've done a bunch of different stuff that I could afford to do with the windows they identified. And then the other big thing that was done, my house is actually a duplex. And while I've always been pretty good about where I set the thermostat at, my tenant, who is much younger, wasn't really tracking when he left the house, anything like that. When I explained this to him and the cost benefit and all that, he's really gotten into it. So he actually has his phone hooked up to his thermostat. He turns it down when he leaves. He turns it down more at night. It's really made a difference as far as that's concerned. I mean, these actions are lining up with the calendar at the bottom because they more or less correlate to when these things started happening. I also had some, I have these crawl spaces in the basement that Center for Energy and the Environment called out, where I've been able to fix about a third of it, but I can't reach the rest. So it's on my to-do list. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to solve that problem, but I'll get there. And so with just these various smaller things, I've been able to cut my natural gas usage by about 15 to 20%. And it's an estimate because you're never quite sure how much good one action is going to do. But you can see it lines up if we go to the start of 2021, that it's already over 20%. Where the last place where it really dropped off, and this is where Susan asked me to talk to start with, is I got a heat pump. And the heat pump is, for those of you who are not familiar with it, it works under the same principle as an air conditioner. So it takes heat from the outside and puts it in your house. It can work as both a heat and cooling source. So for the first time in my life, I have central air, which is pretty luxe, if you ask me. It runs on electricity. So this ties back to, I signed up for wind power. So this part of my heating is covered under renewable energy. Some things, if you're interested in getting one, you still will need a supplemental heating source. They don't have them working to the point where that's all you could rely on in Minnesota's climate, because it works to about 15 degrees Fahrenheit. And then below that, it really doesn't work anymore. However, when you think about our falls and our springs and how many days we have where we need heat, it really makes a difference. So that actually has accounted for about another 30%, 25 to 30% drop in my natural gas use. So that I think I did okay on time. I went through it fairly quickly, but I think this is important because quite often you don't know how much of a difference you're making, and your house, for a lot of people with older homes, your house pollutes more than your car does. And nobody ever talks about that. And I think it's something to keep in mind. So I'm going to see if anybody has any questions.
I have a question.
Sure.
Hey, so I'm with you on this. My house is 1909.
Okay.
So I was looking very carefully. It's like, oh, I need to do that one. So have you, and you have stucco also. I think the only thing that saves me is the fact that some horrible human put stucco over clapboard, because I used to have a beautiful Victorian house and now it's this horrible stucco box. But the stucco actually has been providing some insulation, whereas there is no insulation in the walls. And well, so that was interesting.
Yeah, and Wendy, I'm gonna put in the chat minnesotacee.org. I'm sorry, did you say where you lived, if you don't mind me?
Oh no, that's fine. I'm in Whittier.
Oh, okay, yeah, reach out to them because they do energy audits, and quite often they will do them for free. It depends sort of on, how much you make for one thing, but then sometimes they'll have promotions where they do it for free. It is a new, oops, thanks, Susan, I put it in the wrong space. It is a really great way to start. And they also provide 0% financing. So if you are thinking of wall insulation, you can get 0% financing. You can get rebates. I think there's like a $500 rebate. And it is something you'll get back when it's time to sell your house. They've done studies on that.
I actually did that.
Oh, okay. Okay,
That-
great. So you're sorry.
That's
I was
that's quite all
hearing
right. But that's how I know I have no insulation. Because they drilled a little hole in my wall and it's like, you have no insulation.
Yeah, and I'm in Prospect Park, and 20% of the houses here don't have any wall insulation.
So by the way, when you're ready to do your hot water heater, I highly recommend the Rheem heat pump. I just swapped out I'm getting ready for swapping out all my appliances for electric because I'm going solar this year.
Okay.
And it made a big difference.
Yeah,
really did.
my mom got one, and for me, it's just like my heat pump's good for another 5 years. So when it comes time to replace it,
The hot
I'll
water
do
heater, you
that.
mean?
Yeah, the hot water heater. I mean, yeah.
And you
So,
can control it from your phone, and you can turn it off when you're not in the house. And
yeah, lots of
Anyway.
nice. Yeah.
So other people have questions, so I won't.
Oh, sure.
Mary, a question on your heat pump. Is it noisy? I've heard stories of fans being very loud. How about yours?
Not really. I mean, the only weird thing is it does defrost, which nobody had told me about. And the first few times it was defrosting, I was really worried something bad was happening, but it's just part of the setup.
Yeah, mine scared me this winter. It was the first winter I had my heat pump going, and I was like, what is this noise that's coming on?
Okay, yeah, and I really like it. I mean, honestly, the central air part of it to me was just so luxurious. I had never had central air before, and it was just like, oh, this is the good life. So,
Mary, this is Brick. I'm curious, what were some of the factors that went into the company's decision process in locating the heat pump? Which direction? South, west, northeast?
oh, honestly, I think that what it was where it made the most sense outside. So they looked at where my furnace was located downstairs because I still needed a furnace. And then they were like, okay, well, it makes the most sense to just go out to the side, aesthetically, as well as just where the windows in my basement or where the access was. It was the closest part of my basement. I'm assuming that's why they decided that spot.
Thank you.
Yeah, oh, sure, no problem. And I should mention, I'll bring this up in future meetings, but my neighborhood will be having another echo tour this year in June. We don't have a date yet, but I don't think my house will be one of the ones on the tour, but if we have it and you want to stop by and see a heat pump, we can figure something out. The heat pump, that's a good question, Steve. I had like window air conditioners. So, it was sort of like my bedroom was fine and the rest of the house was terrible. I hope that they do replace the air conditioning unit. It would make sense to me that's what happens if you have central air. I haven't looked it up yet, though.
Yeah, no, that's correct.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
That's correct. There's just one A coil in the furnace, and it acts for both purposes. And I just want to point out that if my cooperative electric offers a really great deal on heat pumps, where if you put it on the interruptible for the air conditioning mode, then they give you a discounted rate for the air conditioning, for the heat pump mode, and for the furnace fan. So I pay about a 2/3 rate for my electricity for all of that. So I actually have a outdoor air sensor and a really smart thermostat. So it will not start the heat pump if the temperature outside is below 34 degrees. So I avoid that defrost cycle.
Okay.
And I have a very efficient furnace, so it makes a good way to reduce my gas consumption and my costs, but not overwork. I'm also concerned about the life of the compressor, the life of the air conditioning unit. But, and so I don't want to run it for a little bit of an advantage. I want to kind of maximize its life. But I also say that The heat pumps have a much more efficient heat exchanger outside and inside. So they run better in air conditioning mode, and in a way that you might not be able to afford it if it was strictly an air conditioner. But as it's also a heat pump, you can afford to pay the extra money for a higher efficiency unit.
Yeah, and those are good things you're mentioning, Bill, because I will be honest, I know that I should sit down and figure out how to set it up so that it's not running all the time, so that I have exactly what you're talking about. It's one of those things on my to-do list. So the heat pump water heater was actually at my mom's house. And I'm sorry, I just don't remember who it was. That's terrible. I will tell you one thing. If you do get an energy audit from Center for Energy and the Environment, they give you names of contractors, which I just love. I have to get my attic air sealed. That's my next big project around here. And I had a guy come out, give me a flat bid, which felt a little weird. Then the next guy came out, said I didn't need it. And so I called Center for Energy and Environment, and they came back out, looked at it, said, yes, this is exactly what you need, gave me a couple more names. And now I've got it scheduled for, I think, first week of April. So they are a good source for contractors as well. Okay, great.
Thank you so much, Mary.